At a glance, you were unimpressive. Small and thin. Weak, even. However, I'd learned all too well that your outward appearance was just a facade for what lay beneath. Like the magic which you controlled, your temper burned bright and cruel. An inferno. Your mere presence was enough to draw others to you like insects to a flame, singing your praises, almost as if you were a god. And yet, as much as they respected and loved you, they also seemed to fear you. Not the way that I did. Do. This was different, and I could never understand why. You were beyond loyal to the people that followed you, with immeasurable strength to protect them. Unless... Did they perhaps worry you would turn on them? I suppose it was possible. You always were a little crazy. Well, maybe more than just a little. Above all, I remember your scent. It was a constant smoldering flame, always present, except in the moments where your fury was on full display. In those moments it grew until you smelled like a wildfire. Powerful, uncontrollable. The scent of smoke was so strong that it burned my nose just to be near you. It always reminded me of that night, or at least the little that I remember from it. Awakening to the smell and heat. Burning. And nothing I did would make it stop. And the screams. God, the screams. Sometimes I can still hear them, and that may just be the worst part. At the time I knew those voices, but now they're just a distant memory. Names and faces long forgotten to time. I will never be able to forget the sound of them, though. The curse would never help me. And of course, for a long time, you were there to make every moment worse. One moment stands out in particular, though I could not tell you why. There was nothing unique about it when compared to other interactions we had. Yet this is the one that I think of first, and so I will remind you of it. You were speaking with your brother nearby. Though I do not know what the conversation was about, it seemed like a pleasant interaction. You both were smiling, and I even heard you laugh. I was not with you, instead sitting a few feet away in the shadows trying to hide myself. You had called my name when you first arrived, before your brother had interrupted you, and I had not moved. This was the first day in a very long time that I was aware of myself, my thoughts and actions, rather than locked behind a wall that you put in place. It was still there. I did not have full control of myself, but I wasn't completely buried beneath it like usual. I at least knew who I was. The last thing I wanted was to be anywhere near you. Then your brother left. I have often heard people say that the temperature drops in a room when someone is angry, but for you, it rose as your temper flared. Rhalasca'mar. I heard you say it. Without needing to look, I knew you were glaring at me. And with that single word, my name, I felt instant terror. I shouldn't. It was my name. I was proud of it. And yet you had so easily twisted it into something vile. To this day, I still cannot stand to hear it, not even in my own thoughts. Pathetic, no? You would certainly say so. Nevertheless, at your call I was moving. Fighting but moving. Each step was a struggle as your magic and my own fear fought for control of my actions and mind. Now I realize that it would not have mattered what I did. There was nowhere for me to escape to, though at the time I was not aware of that. When I had forced myself close enough, you knelt down and lifted my head so that we were seeing one another. Your touch was so gentle, startlingly so, but it burned. I flinched. This was the wrong thing to do. It always was. You grabbed a fistful of fur with one hand and pulled me back, the other hand holding my chin. And still your touch burned. "Never pull away from me," you said to me. I could not have said anything if I had even wanted to. You had silenced me long before this moment. I only stared at you, waiting. You were silent for so long. What were you thinking about? And then, like every other time we had a similar interaction before, and every time after, you had one thing which you would say. You always said the same thing. "I hate you." Why? I had never done anything to you. Attempted? Sure. I came plotting to kill you. But then so had the others. I was no different than any of them, and yet it was me who took all of your blame and hate. You barely glanced in their direction. What was it that made you lash out at me? You did not even know who I was, or the role that I had in coming here until much later. No. Wait. I am being selfish. I never would have wished the experience I went through with you on the others. But in that time, I did often wish that it had not been me who you singled out. Out of the 5, why me? Why not let me die? At the time, I was not given the chance to think about it. Almost as soon as you had finished speaking, your hands were on fire, and I was burning. In my head, I was screaming, my own voice joined with those of the dead, but to you, I was silent. All you knew were my struggles as I tried to pull away, claws scraping at the skin on your arms. "Be still," you had said to me, almost as if my panic was nothing more than a minor annoyance to you. I growled, immediately knowing it was a mistake, but unable to stop myself. In a way, it worked. I was released, and the flames were gone, though the feeling of burning did not go away. Already I knew that the scales where you had been touching me were ruined, likely charred and black. You did not care. You are awake. It was not a question. You knew. I was aware of the situation, no longer buried beneath your spell. I heard you laugh, but I could not bring myself to meet your gaze. Your hand was on my face once more, so close that I could have bitten it, yet I did nothing. I knew what was about to happen. There was no point in fighting it. My mind, battered down and broken, was doomed to fade, snuffed out like a dying flame beneath your control. I have often wondered if you realized how cruel your spell actually is, how it hurts and changes you. You will never experience it, but if you could, I wonder if it might make you stop. I am not sure if I can describe it properly either, but you need to know, even though you will never care. To me, being placed under the control of your spell was like being beneath the water while your mind and body are on fire. You can try to swim against it, but in the end, there is no escape. And then, when you do eventually resurface, you're just a shell of who you were before being dragged under. There are thoughts and feelings that are not yours. You did not truly experience them, and parts of who you are have been lost, left behind, Ishlamar has told me that the spell was changed later on, that it became softer and less damaging because the Elme were dissatisfied with how much of an impact it had on our personalities. I have not experienced nor seen this version in action, nor do I wish to. But I find it quite amusing. They created it to begin with. They knew what it would do. Only after the damage had been done, and they continued using it, did they learn to regret it. He told me Malvir has used this version of the spell on Naoli, that he never removed it from her mind. And I am ashamed to admit that my greatest fear when you returned to attack us was that Naoli might turn against us. Not willingly, of course. I know better than that. But through the spell. And then what? We would be helpless to help or stop her. You would have won. I cannot defeat you in a fair fight, so it would be pure fantasy to pretend for one moment that I could have beaten both of you. And so, in my desire to keep her out of your grasp, I tried to keep your attention on me. And it worked. For a while, at least. You were so focused on me that you barely touched her until the end. My failure, then, was in not preparing Naoli for what you could do. She and Ishlamar assured me you could never come back. I trusted them, but I should have known better. Trusted myself. Naoli did not know what you could do, nor how to fight against it. I barely did myself. In a momentary lapse of my own judgment, I got too close for too long. I was trapped, and there was nothing she or I could do. I remember Naoli tried to talk you down, and you silenced my voice like you always have done when I tried to defend myself. "You never let me!" I had tried to say. I thought that was the end, but it was not. The rest is a blur, though I remember biting you and... fire. Burning again. In the end, though, we won. Finally, I am free.